Most people install a WordPress security plugin and assume that's the whole job. It watches the traffic and blocks whatever looks like an attack. They thought their site was secure. It wasn't. Here's what it never checked, not even once: whether the person typing in your password is actually you. In a meeting in Tampa with the rest of PwC's information security team, our Chief Information Security Officer at the time, James Shira, opened the meeting with 4 words. We are at war. We all knew about the gap. Shira just gave it a name: war. And he meant it literally. Everyone was trying to get in all the time, and that was never going to change. His answer came straight from Sun Tzu, the author of the book, The Art of War. Identify the attack surface. Reduce the attack surface. Harden the attack surface. Raise the cost of an attack. Now, there's a 5th piece that Sun Tzu wrote about in that book also. Know who's in your camp. That one was mine. I'm a certified information systems security professional, and my job at PwC was identity and access management. Knowing who actually belonged past the door wasn't theory to me. Your WordPress site is fighting the same war right now, and it never stops. Today, I walk through 4 ways to close the gap: stopping the traffic before it costs you anything, locking the front door before anyone reaches it, checking who's actually behind it, and watching what got through anyway. Hi, I'm William Beam. I started my own business and did what most other business owners do. I picked up tools one at a time. My bills kept climbing. I still did the work by hand that I'd already paid the tools to do. The truth is, I'd spent years building systems in places like Lockheed Martin and PwC. I just wasn't using that skill set on my own business. That's what I do now as principal architect for Suburbia Press, and it's what this show teaches you. Last episode, I showed you why a slow WordPress dashboard is usually an architecture problem, not a WordPress problem. If you're new here, episode 1 walks through the 5 questions this whole show runs on. I call it the capability framework. So that war from Tampa never really ended. It just moved on to WordPress sites. The first pillar is identify the attack surface. Most WordPress owners skip that step completely. They install one plugin and they assume the surface is covered. Problem is, a WordPress site doesn't have one door. It has several. The login form is one, so is the REST API, so is XML-RPC, plugin endpoints, comment forms, file uploads, even the bots crawling your content count. Since some of them aren't reading it, they're scraping it. A plugin watching traffic covers part of that. It doesn't cover all of it. The doors it misses are usually the ones that nobody thought to check. So here's the map for today. Cloudflare handles the traffic at the edge. Zero Trust locks the admin front door before anybody reaches it. FluentAuth checks who's actually behind the door. Wordfence, trimmed down a bit, watches the files inside the walls. The first mistake a lot of people make is resource cost. Fighting volume of traffic inside of your own walls means paying for it in server time you didn't have to spend. Move that fight to the edge. That fixes it. That's your continuity held. The second mistake sat underneath the first. It took longer to see. A firewall answers one question: does this traffic look malicious? It never asks the question that actually matters once someone has a real password. Is this login actually the person it claims to be? That's the assumption worth naming directly. A breach doesn't look like an attack. It looks like a normal login from a password that leaked somewhere. You'll never see it. It can look like a session token lifted off a public network. Zero Trust starts from the assumption that this has already happened. Nobody gets trusted by default, inside the walls or out. Decide where the fight happens before you're under pressure to decide it. Stop volume at the edge before it costs you a server. Then assume the edge will fail eventually. Check identity at every door behind it, not just the front one. All right, I'm looking at Cloudflare. We're going to use the free plan. There's a baseline rule set covering common exploits like SQL injection, cross-site scripting. There's a service on here called bot fight mode, rate limiting. You only get one rule for rate limiting with the free plan, but if you decide that you want to pay for Cloudflare, you can get more. There are AI bot policies set by category available at no cost on every plan. Why are we going to use this? Well, like I said, you want to move the fight away from your server. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm on my Cloudflare plan, and I'm going to use this domain beam.us. And let me take a quick look. So I've got this site, and this is really just for my family only. This login prompt here is from a plugin that we'll talk about later. It's called FluentAuth. And right now, anybody who goes to log in will get to this site. We're going to change that during the course of this. But before we do that, we want to implement a few rules. So I'm on Cloudflare. You can sign up, get a free plan. You don't have to pay for anything for the things I'm going to show you here. You want to come down here to security. And let's start actually with security settings, because this will get you a long way towards what you want to do. We're not going to talk about every setting on here. Like, for example, this one's in beta. I'm not going to bother with it. This one, to block AI bots, you notice it says deprecating September 15th. Well, today I'm recording on August 23rd. So this isn't going to be here much longer. I'm not going to worry about that as well. We're going to start here at bot fight mode. This is on by default, and it's going to detect and challenge bot traffic on your domain. Now, bots are not necessarily AI bots. This is any kind of bot. Usually most attacks are automated, and they call that a bot. So it's coming out to your site, it's looking for weaknesses, it's trying to find information. It may try to inject something in your SQL server. There are all sorts of different attacks. So bot fight mode understands that, because Cloudflare sees traffic from all over the world. It has a good database and understanding of what the patterns are. It has a reputation score on people and sites that have gone through its system. So that's why Cloudflare is really good. So bot fight mode, just turn it on. And it's going to be looking for JavaScript detections. The next one is this browser integrity check. Again, on by default. It's going to evaluate your headers from your visitor's browser. Quite often, your attackers will try to fake what their browser really is to make you think it's something else. That's okay. This already knows all the common things to do. Just turn it on. It's that easy. Now we're going to come down a little bit further to a Cloudflare managed rule set. I've got this on, created and maintained by Cloudflare. In other words, they've already created the rules for you. You don't have to do a thing. It recommends you enable these rules whose tags correspond to your technology stack. So there are website applications, and we can click on View Rule Set. I'm going to open that up in a different thing over here. And you can see it's got all of this stuff over here, all these tags that it knows internally. You don't have to worry about all this, and it's showing 10 of 31. So if we keep on clicking over, there are more and more different types of tags out there of things that it knows. So we can just go ahead and close this out and accept what it's doing for you. Trust me, it's in your best interest. All right, now for your AI bot policies, there are 3 things it's looking at. And this is why that one we saw before is changing a bit and is being deprecated. So the first one is search. These are the bots that scan your site, so it helps it appear in search engine results. Allow, do not block is what I have. And you'll see where it says recommended, that's what Cloudflare is recommending. Your options are to block them. You can block every AI if you want to. You can block them on pages with ads, or you can allow them. I've chosen to allow them, and you can do what you want to do. Agents, bots that pull information from your site to provide a response to a user question. So again, I've got to allow, do not block, and you get the same options. Block, block on pages with ads, or do not block. So far, I've been going with the recommended ones. Training. Now, these are the ones that scrape your site, and this will block all training crawlers, even those with the same bot for search. That's where you need to be careful. If you block these ones, some of these AI bots are using the same bot for search as they are for training. Didn't used to be that way. It used to be that you could block the training ones and allow the search ones in, which is what I preferred. So right now, I've got this idea over here that if I block this, that means I could also be blocking the ones for search, which kind of contradicts what I have over here. But I'm going to follow the recommendation. And look, I don't have pages with ads, but it is going to allow some of these things through. And I'll save that. So you've got a little link over here to exclude such crawlers. You can set your preferences in here. We're not going to go into details or else this video is never going to end. Continuous script monitoring. This is going to look for problems of scripts on your WordPress website. and it detects and monitors changes to JavaScript. And using this, basically determines if there's any malicious or unexpected modifications, such as injected malware or skimming scripts. Again, another good one to have on. I'm going to skip down here, and I like this one, email address obfuscation. If you display an email address on your website without this protection, scrapers can come in here, get it, and next thing you know, you've got a bunch of spam going to it. So if you've got like support@yourdomain.com, then next thing you know, your support site and email address is going to be getting all sorts of stuff here. So I would suggest leave this on. And the next one I like, hot link protection. I've got a photography site. People like some of my photos. They want to show them on their site. Well, my server has to use its resources and bandwidth to send that over to display on someone else's site that I don't even know who they are. Hot link protection keeps people from off-site linking, and I recommend that. It'll save you resources and might save you some copyright information too. There are a number of denial of service attacks that happen. So whenever I see a denial of service, I go ahead and mark it active. Basically, a denial of service is when somebody is pinging your site so much, trying to crash it so it can't hold on to, fending off all the different attacks. I would much rather they fight the enterprise-grade servers at Cloudflare and never get off to my site directly. They're geared for it. Most of your self-hosted sites probably are not. So that's why it's a good thing to have. Now, IP access rules, this is where you can set up rules, and I'll show you those later, where it can show you which IPs are always going to get through. You may want to have your host always get through. So that's something that we'll look at later on. An IP list, that's where you can configure, basically you can make lists of IP addresses to use in your custom rules. So in other words, instead of having to type in all of those IPs manually one at a time, you just make a list and reference the list. All right, this is another good one, leaked credentials detection. You've probably seen this before. It's like this password has been found in a leak. Well, if it was found in a leak, you can turn this on. You can create a custom rule, and that way, if it's leaked out there and they know about it, then they can block things. What I do is I use this with a rate limiting rule. So if someone's got a leaked password, I limit how many times they can try it and then just knock them off. Let's scroll on down a little bit more. This is a different type of denial of service attack. And again, I've always got that one on. I didn't work with Precursor. I just skipped on down here to replace insecure JavaScript libraries. You may have different versions of JavaScript libraries. Some are safer, some are faster, and Cloudflare has its own that are safer and faster. And what they will do is they will substitute their libraries for yours to help you performance with speed, for faster alternatives, and also safer if there are problems in the libraries that you have on your site. Schema validation, another one I suggest you turn on. It protects your origin from invalid API requests and malicious payloads. So it's validating requests against schema. And you can block or log, those that don't comply. Now, in order to do that, you've got to upload your schema. And we're not going to go into that right now, but that is something that we can take care of here. All right, so after schema validation, we're going to scroll on down a little bit more. And I'm going to tell you that I've got one more denial of service protection down here. This is a different one attacking basically your certificates, SSL and TLS. And there's a web asset discovery. Automatically discover your application's web assets to map out your attack surface area. We talked about attack surface, identify and reduce and harden. That's what this is doing. So it will map all this out for you. And that's it for this part of it. But that's not all we're going to do here. We're also going to come over here to security rules. Let's click on that. On the free plan, you get 5 rules. So you can see over here, I've got 3 out of 5 rules that I'm using. I break this down into 3 steps for my sites. The first one is to allow the traffic that I want. So this one that says allow good bots. I want known bots, verified bots. I've got a few AS nums. If you're not familiar with that phrase, go ahead and Google and look it up. You'll find out that major data centers usually get assigned a number. I'm looking at certain user agents and certain things like Let's Encrypt and Acme Challenge. All of that really boils down to this, but that is my first rule. If I get traffic from some of these things, I want to let them through. So then I take an action. And you've really got three choices. So ignore the ones that say non-interactive challenge or interactive challenge, because then you'll get this little notice that says, consider using the more user-friendly managed challenge. So really what you want to do is, in this case, I want to skip. And what skip means is if I match somebody in this first rule, it will skip the remaining rules. So they get right on through without any more challenges. Now, do you want to log matching requests? Do you want to skip your web application firewall components? That's really up to you. For this one, yeah, I do. And I'm going to skip all of this stuff because I've already determined, based off of that information, that I don't want it to have to work with any other rules. And this is the first rule on the list. I want it active, and I want to save this. So let's go to my second rule, commercial scrapers. Now, if we look at this one, these are the people I really don't want, if they're bots. These ASNums are known to host different services where people will load their attack bots. And that could include some things that you know about. That could be DigitalOcean. It could be Microsoft Azure. It could be the hosting service that you're using. I've found some ASNums that are known to host, hackers like using them, and they go right in there and do it. I've also looked at some of my analytics and found some and added to this. So this is kind of like a living document. I will add to this as I determine other ones to add. But these are bots I don't want, but there may also be humans in here. So what do? I come down here and I choose Manage Challenge. You've very likely seen this before. It'll come up with a little area that says, check this box if you're a human. The bots can't do that right now. So the Manage Challenge basically says, if you're human, click here, and then you can proceed. So if there are humans on those sites, I'll let them through. Doesn't mean that they're not bad humans, but the chances are good. I'm trying to block out a lot of the bots. And this custom order is right after allow good bots. It's active, and of course, I'm going to save that. Now, my last one. This is basically, it says block web hosts and paths. These are things that name is no longer really right for me, but here's what it is. If they're not in one of these countries, if they're not in the United States, if they're not in Great Britain, that should be the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, or Ireland, then I want to take an action. It could be block if I just want to be really rude about it, because there are a lot of places that I get traffic from that are doing attacks. China, Russia, Singapore, the Netherlands, all these places are hotbeds for attack bots. But I've chosen that if there are some people there that really want to visit my site, I'll let them. Now, on this one, because this is just for my family, and I know where my family lives in the US and Great Britain and Australia and so forth, well, I'll allow them. But on this one, I'm going to choose block. Other sites, I would choose Manage Challenge. That's because I know where the people are who should be allowed to this site. The rest of them, they can just get blocked. Again, this custom order will fire after the commercial scrapers. It's active, and I'll save that. So with that in mind, let's go take a quick look at our analytics. And I'm going to come over here to events. And these are things that are happening. So these managed challenges, these are people that got caught or they weren't on the skip list. So over here, the skip list, those are United States people, they got right through. These people, North Macedonia. I don't know anybody in North Macedonia. That was from my custom rules. Russian Federation, I don't know anybody in Russia. I told you the Netherlands shows up, Singapore shows up. Now this one in Canada, I allow Canada on that last rule, but the bot fight mode that we enabled earlier under the settings, that's getting people right over here. So some of these are my custom rules. Some of these are the settings that I made, and they're being filtered out. So basically, this is a continuity fix. It's to keep your site running. And the direct payoff is that the fight moves off the server before it costs you anything. Cloudflare's detection works at a network scale. It learns from traffic across its entire network, not just WordPress-specific attack data. So what I'm showing you here is a baseline that every WordPress owner already has access to. It's a free plan. What you have to do is make Cloudflare your DNS host. And that's a good thing because it's also faster than probably other services that you may be using. All right, in this block, we're going to talk about Zero Trust. So this is an identity gate in front of the login page itself before WordPress even loads it. What happens is that you're going to go to Cloudflare on your dashboard. This is not underneath one of your domain accounts. This is on the dashboard. And you'll scroll down to Zero Trust. From here, you're going to go to Access Controls. And you're going to go to Applications. Now, for the site that I wanted to choose, well, I've already done it. So I'm going to show you what the steps are, but it's not going to show you the actual login that I'm going to use with Google, but I'll explain how it gets there. So we're going to open this up, and you're going to build this page out. You're going to put in, if you have a subdomain, you'll put it there. You'll put in your domain, and you're going to put in wp-login.php. That's the part we want to protect. And then down here, you're going to have an access policy. You probably won't have one, obviously, the first time you do this. So you could have started down here in policies, which is probably the right place to do it. But you can create a new policy here. You could add another existing policy if you wanted to. But let's go over here to create a new policy. And you can choose what it's going to be. It's going to be emails or authentication method. As a password, it's going to be an SMS, multi-factor authentication, one-time password. You've got a lot of options. If you have an iris biometric authenticator, you got a ton of ways you can do this. Or if you just want something simple, just say emails. And then you put in the email address that you're going to have. You give it a name, and you're going to allow it. Now, the nice idea of having a different policy for each person on here, let's say someone leaves your organization or you no longer want them on the website. Well, if they're all included on the same policy, like you can do requirements for add or not. If you have to delete somebody, you could delete them from there, but you can't block that one person. If you have a different policy for everybody, then you can go to that one person's policy and just choose block if you need to get rid of them. So, but in this case, we want to allow you. Anybody who's got the email address that we want over here is going to work. And the policy session duration is going to be whatever you choose. I think it usually defaults to about 30 minutes. You can set for no duration, it expires immediately, or you can have it go up to 1 month. On this one, I'm going to set no duration. And there are other additional settings. I'm going to leave those alone. And I'm going to cancel this one because I've already created a policy. Yes, I'm leaving. Okay, so we've got my domain. Everything's over here. I've already got my policy set. And you can test your policies. And isn't that nice? I'm approved. Very good. All right, now down to this section, you've got a choice. You can use a one-time PIN, which will send it to the email address that you provide. If you have a Google account, it'll allow you to authenticate with Google. Google is an identity provider. It is separate from your WordPress, which is also an identity provider. But if you've got a Google account, I would say do that. It's much easier to click, what your Google account is than to have to go to your email, get the PIN, paste it in. It's really your call. Which way do you want to do? And then you've got a little preview over here, like anybody who's authenticated, which by this policy gets to go to this destination. And we're going to save that. What would happen is before you get to this page, there would be a prompt. If you did the one-time PIN, it'll clearly be at cloudflareaccess.com, and it'll ask you to put in your email address and then put in the code that was emailed to you. If you did the Google thing, it would do what I've already done previously here is it will say, what's your Google account? I put in my Gmail account. It authenticates that because I'm signed in as Google account right now. If you weren't already signed in with your Google account, it would have you authenticate what's your password for your Gmail or Google account, and then it would give you this page. So once I'm here, now I can go ahead and log in. This is a different login, and probably should be a different login than maybe what you set. So obviously I don't log in here with my Google account. I don't use my account for this page on my access control at Zero Trust, because if somebody got a leaked password for this page, that would also allow them to get through the Zero Trust password. I would recommend for your Zero Trust that you're building in Cloudflare that you use a different email account. And that's why Gmail is a good one. If you don't use Gmail here, use it on the other one if you've got a Gmail account. And that way you can get in. All right. So that's the idea behind Zero Trust, is that before you can even get to the place to log in where someone may use a leaked or stolen password, they have not reached your site yet when they get a page that tells them, hey, you got to log in here and authenticate first. It's a trust layer. It's an identity section. And that is why Zero Trust really is very helpful, because you don't trust people to get to this page if they haven't told you who they are. That's the whole idea here. Layer 3 is going to be a WordPress plugin called FluentAuth. It is free. It is from the people behind WP Managed Ninja. You don't have to pay for it. This can do two-factor login administration. So even though I've gone through Zero Trust, then I've got my password for the site, I still can get a two-factor login. So here's the email I got when I tried to log in. So it asked for this code. And then after I had put in my user ID and password, that's where the two-factor auth came in. I plugged that code in here. I click login. And now I'm at my site. All right, so I mentioned that this is from a plugin called FluentAuth. Let's go over to the dashboard. So what this does, obviously you just saw two-factor login for whatever roles you decide. I usually put them up there for administrator and editor roles. Brute force lockout attempts. It disables XML, RPC, REST API, user enumeration, blocking, and so forth. Let's go ahead and take a look inside. You can see where there were failed logins. A day ago, I had the wrong password over here, so I failed. Let's go to the settings. And this is where you can see that I'm disabling some security places. These are different attack surfaces. XML-RPC. I'm app login to the REST API. I'm disabling the REST endpoint for WP users query for public. And that's like people try to look inside of your database and see who's there. Also, I'm replacing the default sign-up form with the one that you saw that had purple on one side and the login page on the other. So I'm not seeing the standard WordPress login form. I've got something different because it's all being intercepted and handled by this plugin. Now, you can enable login security and login limits. So, for example, per IP address, they can make 5 attempts, and if that doesn't work within 30 minutes, then they get locked out for 30 minutes. And if you want to change this to something different, you can do that as well too. There is also an option for a magic login. What that means is if they go to your site, instead of trying to put in a username and password, they click a link for a magic login. It will go ahead and email them a URL. They click that. The URL has information to confirm that the user is who they say they are because they got the email. And then that will log them right into the WordPress dashboard. You can disable this for different types of users. I've disabled it for subscribers. You can also enable two-factor authentication, which you saw at the beginning of this block, where I had the code emailed to me and I put it in after I did my user ID and password. I've got that set for the administrator, editor, and author. Now, do you want notifications for any of these user roles when they log in? Yeah, I want to know when an administrator logs in. And I also want an email notification when a user gets blocked. There's a digest you can send at the beginning of first day of every month. You can do it like every given weekday. You can do it daily or not get anything at all. Let's say that every Monday, I want to know what's going on. And also, you want to clean up your logs because they'll build up and they'll just bloat things. So right now, I delete anything older than 30 days. This next one, where it says disable admin bar and WP admin access. Well, this bar up at the top, that is the admin bar. And this back end is the WP-admin section. So if they are not permitted because they are a subscriber, again, you can change that to subscribers or contributors. And those people will not see this because they're probably going to be looking at something else. Like your homepage, they could be logged in and do things there, but they're not going to see the back end of your site. So that is FluentAuth. So what this is going to do is it controls things from the other side of the door. After Zero Trust decides who reaches the login page, then FluentAuth decides what happens once they're standing in front of the login page. It keeps working even after the password is already compromised. And also, this works with some of the other products from WP Managed Ninja. You'll see the same kind of login prompt on Fluent Community. Now, some of these things that we looked at up here are also available in Wordfence, but I chose to use them here, not in Wordfence. You don't want to disable things in multiple plugins. There are other plugins that will also disable these things. Pick one and use it. I've chosen FluentAuth. That's my setting. But if you see it in other things, maybe you've got Perf Matters or another plugin, only use one plugin to disable these things, and that'll be good for you. All right, the final piece we're going to look at is down here at the bottom, Wordfence. And again, I'm using the free version of Wordfence. And we're going to actually go down to all options. Now, even if you're using the free version, Wordfence requires a license. You can get a license for free. You'll put that in here. And I don't want this to duplicate the effort of FluentAuth or of Cloudflare. So I'm going to turn off a lot of things, but there are services in Wordfence I want that the other services don't do. So for example, the basic firewall options, I've got disabled. If I come down here to the advanced firewall options, well, I don't really need those either. But there are a couple of services I want to allow. I want to allow the Uptime Robot. I'll allow the Google search engine. I don't really need it for this website, but that's okay. But mostly, I don't really need it to do these jobs because something else is doing it. So if I handle this, I don't need brute force protection from this because, again, that's my server trying to handle and fend off brute force stuff. Well, I don't want that to happen here, so I turn it off. I'm going to have that happen at Cloudflare. So why am I turning these things off? Because even if you've got Cloudflare doing it, these are still consuming resources, your RAM, your CPU, your PHP workers. You don't really want them. So you don't want rate limiting because, again, I've got that happening up on Cloudflare. You don't need these services, so you don't want them running CPU cycles that take up percentages of your resources on your server. All I want are the scan options. I want Wordfence to scan, so I've got that enabled. And I'm just going to use the standard scan. That works well for me. And I can look at some general options. A lot of these are premium features, but I'm looking for scans. And you can also scan for theme files against repository for changes or against plugin files if you choose to do that. These are not bad things to have. All of these little scans you can enable or disable. Some of these, like scan for malicious URLs, backdoor Trojans, they should be filtered out by Cloudflare. But you know what? No security is perfect. So what you want to do is, in this case, if you're going to use this for scanning, let it do it. Because Cloudflare, once it gets past Cloudflare, cannot scan what's on your site. This does. I want to know what's on my site. So I'll come over here and I'm going to save these options. Now, I've got the protection for the scanning, so it's going to look at what happens as far as malware and problems that are happening there. It's not going to be looking at live traffic. It's not going to be trying to fight things off. This is basically looking to see what happened after someone got inside. So I'm looking for malware and file integrity scanning. That's the only part of Wordfence that I'm going to leave running. It's the one job left that neither the edge nor the identity checking can do. is watching your own files for unauthorized changes. Okay, so in this video, we covered 4 ways to close the gap in your WordPress security. Cloudflare handled traffic at the edge, stopping it before it ever cost you a server resource. Zero Trust locked the admin door before anyone could even reach it. So even if they had a compromised password, they couldn't get there to put it in if they didn't know how to get past Zero Trust. The FluentAuth plugin is free. It checked to see who was standing behind that door once they got there. In other words, it was what I was using for my authentication on WordPress. Wordfence trimmed down to just the job it's built for, keeping watch on the files inside your walls. None of that is a switch you flip once and walk away from. Cloudflare's rules update, your plan tier changes what you can turn on, new attacks show up all the time, that none of this was yet built to catch. I tell people security isn't a destination, it's a journey. You don't arrive at a secure place and stop. You're always looking for whatever the next hack is, the next problem. And these things do update. So Wordfence will update when it recognizes new scan problems. Cloudflare will update, and you'll have new security tools at your disposal as new attacks and problems come up. But you keep walking over the same 4 pillars over and over. And that's exactly what the Suburbia Press Community is for. Working through your site's attack surface is easier with other people doing the same job. I'm there. You can ask me questions. If you join today, it's free to get in, and I'll help you work through what's actually going on with yours. In the next episode, I'm going to compare Circle and Fluent communities side by side. It's really for the same audience doing the same job, but I'll show you where they pull apart. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you again in the next episode.